In this week's portion, we have the famous Jewish answer to the question. When God asked the Jewish people if they want the Torah, they gave him the famous answer, Nasa v'nishma. We will do, and then we will hear what it is that you want. In other words, they made an unconditional commitment. First we ask, we will do, and then we will hear what it is that we have to do. And that was a tremendous good answer. God gave us the Torah as a result. But it's interesting that this two words, this answer, this commitment that the Jewish people expressed to fulfilling the Torah is placed in this week's portion. This week's portion is called Mishpatim. In the Torah we have different types, categories of mitzvahs. Basically I'll divide them into two. The rational ones that make sense, and then the ones that are super rational, that we do it only because God gave us. One would think that Nasa v'nishma, the commitment to do it just because God said we should do it, that unconditional commitment belongs in the portion that talks about the super rational mitzvahs. After all, the rational mitzvahs, our human mind compels us to do them. We don't even need God to tell us to do those mitzvahs. The Talmud says, if not for God, we would have done them on our own. So over here is where you put the words Nasa v'nishma, which indicates that it's a super rational commitment to God. No, it isn't. It's a rational commitment to these mitzvahs. It is mishpatim, after all. It's the mitzvahs that we understand. But my friends, you should know that there's a secret here. God put this story about this answer of the commitment to Jews, the unconditional commitment to Torah and mitzvahs to God, comes in the portion that talks about the rational mitzvahs, because it is there that we need it most. You know why? Because after all, if you're relying on your intellect and your own human understanding of things, we can be we can go off track very easily. You see, the human mind fluctuates. Times change. We think different today. We think one way. Next year we think a different way. And the generation still even drastically more different. The human mind is hardly reliable. It fluctuates with the time. But these Torah, these mitzvahs, even the ones that we think are rational, we have to do them only because God told us to do them, not because they are rational in our mind, because they make sense, because they're human and that we can relate to them on a human level. That is not why we do them. The reason is, I'll give you just one example. Let's even take the most basic rational mitzvah of all, don't murder. And you ask a person, why you're not allowed to murder, he'll say, what do you mean? It's not your life. The person wants to live. How could you take that person's life? You have no right. And if you do, you should be punished. Makes sense. I think he's right. But that can be up for debate. What happens if that person begs you to take his life? He's in terrible pain, emotional, physical, terminally ill, wants you to pull the plug, wants you to practice mercy killing on that person. There, the mind can already, begin to think, maybe there's an exception, maybe there's room for discussion, maybe there's room for negotiation. But comes the Torah and says, don't murder. And that is absolute. Whether the person's a 20-year-old, robust, healthy person, or the person is in his older years, asleep in a hospital bed, hanging on a thread between life and death. Never are we allowed to end a life consciously because we think it's the right thing. It's never the right thing. But there you see where the details are really super rational. So the Nasa v'nishma, the commitment, non-conditional commitment God puts in the portion of Mishpatim, because it's there that we need it most. You see, the non-rational mitzvahs, it's obvious we're doing them because God told us. There's no other reason we're doing it. But the rational mitzvahs, if you start relying too much on your own rationale, you're in dangerous territory. So God says, no, those mitzvahs I want you to do because I told you to do them. Then you'll be committed. Now, should you use your rationale? Absolutely. We should use our mind, our intellect to understand as much as we can. But we don't rely on that. Is not the reason we do these mitzvahs. We do them because God told us to. Shabbat Shalom, Nasa v'nishma, we will do, and then we will hear.